Shabbat Shalom. So I can make it rain by not taking an umbrella with me, or by buying a ticket to a baseball game. And apparently I can also assure that we will have a larger crowd than normal on a Shabbat morning by being sort of conservative in the number of copies of the text I have reproduced. So if you don't have one, sit next to somebody who does and be able to follow along. It's not really that complicated a text anyway. Okay, so this is from the Talmud, Tractate Sanhedrin, page 98a. And it's a story. It's a good story. Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi found Elijah the prophet. He was standing at the entrance of the burial cave of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi said to him, "Will I be privileged to come to the world to come?" Okay, so Yoshua ben Levi meets Elijah, who's been dead for hundreds of years, but he's going to come back and he's going to be the person, the herald of the Messiah. And so Yoshua ben Levi wants to know, am I going to go to heaven? Am I going to merit the world to come? And so Elijah said to him, if this master, he means this master, God, will wish it, it'll be so. Okay, now, how do we know that? Because there's only Yoshua ben Levi and Elijah, but Yoshua ben Levi says, I saw two, that is to say, Elijah and me, but I heard three voices. Why? Because he hears God's voice as well. Okay? So Elijah says to him, if you want to know, are you going to merit the world to come? Don't ask me. Go ask the Messiah. No, not God. Ask the Messiah. If God wills it, but, okay, so you want to know something, right? And you say to me, well, will such and such a thing happen? And I'll say, if God wants it to happen, it'll happen. Okay, fine. But I want to know, is it going to happen, right? So, in other words, does God want it to happen? I don't know, right? I mean, I would say, I don't know, right? I would probably not say, what?
But you also say, but I'll go find out.
I'll go find out, right? That's about like facts or text, right? Not the future, okay? Believe me, if I knew what was going to happen in the future, I would be very wealthy, right? Because I would take the right stocks, okay? And I wouldn't manipulate the stocks like other people might be doing. But I don't know the future, but so I would say to you, I don't know, go ask the Messiah. Okay, now, of course, if I did that, you would say, look, I knew the rabbi was strange, but I didn't realize how strange he was, right? But that's not what Yoshua ben Levi said. He saw no Elijah, right? So, right? They say in modern Hebrew, in far as, right? So, all right, I got to go ask the Messiah. Where is it? Where is it? So Elijah says to him, he sits at the entrance of the city of Rome. Okay, sits. Okay, so Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi says, okay, fine, so I'll go to Rome, right? Obviously, I must go to Rome to ask the Messiah if I'm going to merit the world to come, but how will I know who he is, right? He's going to be wearing like a t-shirt that says Messiah, right? And Yeshua ben Levi said, no, he's not. How will you know? He sits with all of the other poor people who have illnesses, but all of the other poor, ill people, which means really lepers, okay? And that's why I chose this text, because it's clear from the context that they're talking about leprosy. Why? Because they're all bandaged up. Okay, so all of the others, they untie their bandages all at once, right? They take off all of their bandages, and then they put on new bandages all at once. But the Messiah unties one bandage and ties one at a time, right? Why? Because I might be needed and I'll have to go quickly, right? I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I think that there are kind of two types of people in the world. I mean, there's a lot of like these, right? I mean, two types of people in the world. Those who say there are two types of people in the world, and then who don't say there are two types of people in the world. But I think in terms of like, so do you put on both socks and then both shoes? Or do you do sock, shoes, sock, shoes? Okay? I mean, I don't know. How many people do both socks and then both shoes? Okay, a few. And how many people do sock, shoes, sock, shoe? I do. All right, it's interesting. I mean, you maybe never thought about this.
Archie Bunker.
Before.
Archie, All in the Family had an episode of it.
Okay, I haven't watched All in the Family in a long time. I have to go back. Right, but now, but the Messiah at least has a reason for it, right? And I might have to come quickly, and if I got like all of my bandages off, that's no good. So that's how you can tell. That's the only way you can tell, is that he does his bandages differently than everybody else. So Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi goes to Rome to find the Messiah, and he says to him, "Greetings to you, my rabbi and my teacher." And the Messiah said to him, "Greeting to you, Bar Levi," right? In other words, Ben Levi, in Hebrew, Bar Levi in Aramaic. And so Yeshua ben Levi said to him, "When will the master come?" Meaning, when will you come, right? Right, I'm here to find out whether I'm going to go to the world to come, but I mean, how often do you have a chance to ask questions of the Messiah? So since I'm here, when are you coming? And the Messiah says to him, "Today. I'm coming today." Okay, so now Yeshua ben Levi goes back and he gives a report of his visit to Elijah, and he tells him what happened. And he says to Elijah, the Messiah said, "Greetings to you, Shalom Lecha Bar Levi." And Elijah said to him, he was guaranteeing or telling you that you and your father will enter the world to come, since he greeted you with Shalom, right? Because he said Shalom to you, but also Shalom to your father, right? So that was his way of telling you that, yes, you and your father will both merit the world to come. But Yeshua ben Levi is not happy, because he says, "Yeah, but the Messiah lied to me. He lied to me." Right? Because I asked him, "When are you going to come?" And he said, "Hayom, today." Hayom, he said, coming today, but you're not here. So he lied to me, right? So Elijah said, no, you don't understand. And this, I mean, you have to understand that in the Talmud, they often just quote the first word or the first couple of words of a verse. Because at the time that the Talmud was written, anybody who would be reading the Talmud knows the Bible well, right? And they're writing it out by hand, right? So they just, the first word or the first couple of words, and you know that he means the whole verse, right? So there's a verse in Psalms which actually appears in the liturgy, Hayom im b'kolo tishma. Right? Today, if you would but hearken to his, meaning God's voice. Hayom im b'kolo tishma. Today, if you would but hearken to his voice. So when the Messiah said, when you're coming, and he says Hayom, he doesn't mean just that word Hayom. He means the whole verse. Hayom im b'kolo tishma'u. Today, if you would but hearken to his voice. End of story. Okay, so thoughts, questions, reactions, comments? Yeah, Joe.
It doesn't mirror the high holiday liturgy, doesn't it?
It appears, it's not in the high holiday liturgy, but it is in the Matzah we use as one of the introductory readings, I think,
For the Yom Kippur October.
for the Yom Kippur.
20 October.
Right. Right, that? Yeah, okay, well, you know it well, but yes, but it's not like part of the canonical liturgy, but it is chosen, Rabbi Harlow chose it as one of the sort of optional readings to set the mood for Yom Kippur, which absolutely makes sense, right? Because, in other words, what really is the message of this story? Yeah.
We're not ready. We're not listening. We're not living the life that's expected of us.
Right. That's the flip side of it, right? Or that's the obverse of the coin, right? In other words, the Messiah will come when we're ready, right? When we're ready, we are the ones who decide when the Messiah will come. And therefore, we are the ones who are delayed the coming of the Messiah, because the Messiah will come Hayom im b'kolo tishma'u. The Messiah will come today if we will hearken to his voice, right? And that's certainly, because those of you who know me, right? Like, you'll come to me and say, well, what does Judaism teach about? I'm like, well, there's a wide spectrum of teachings, right? So there is certainly a teaching that the Messiah will come purely by divine intervention when, in God's good time. Right? But there's also a perspective that we are the ones who bring the Messiah. Right? We are the ones who bring the Messiah by our behavior, and we delay the Messiah by our behavior. Right? So if we would do what God wanted, the Messiah would come. Right? The problem is, going to be totally honest, right? We know what God wants. What God wants is not what we want. Okay? And therefore, instead of us being created in the image of God, we create God in our image. right? And I mean, right, Abraham Lincoln knew this, right, in his second inaugural, right? Both sides speak, pray to victory to the same God, right? And then he gets a little snarky and he said, might think it a little weird that people would appeal to a just God to aid them in their struggle to wrest their bread from the sweat of other men's brows. But let us judge not lest we be judged, right? But, so we want a God who approves of some people having access to health care and some people not. We want a God who approves of some people having housing and some people not. Right? We want a God, I don't have to go through that whole litany, you all know, right? But that's what we do. We create a God who miraculously wants the same thing that we do. Instead of conforming our behavior to what we really know what God wants, and I'm not sure who the we is, okay? I mean, when it's you, it's in the plural, okay? That's a problem with English, right? But it's hayom im b'kolo tishma'u, plural, right? So today, if y'all would hearken to God's voice, right? But who is the y'all? Is it the Jews? Is it everybody? That is, I think, unclear. But the point of the story, I think is no accident, because this is already after the destruction of the temple. Okay, so this is at a time when Christianity exists. Okay, although many people still see it as just a sect of Judaism, right? But there's a rivalry, and I think, and of course, Rome is also the great power of the era, so I think it's no accident that the Messiah is sitting among the poor at the gates of Rome and not somewhere else. Anyway, long service because of Hallel, so Shabbat Shalom.